table. After a very stimulating first one, I'm told. We are already running late, so without much ado, I'm going to invite the speakers. This is, as we all realize, a massive assault on not only the education system, but the intelligentsia as a whole. And I'm so proud that JNU is taking a lead in this matter, and JNUTA has taken it up in a big way, not only within the university, and this is one way of trying to reach out also. And this is going to be a battle, I think, which has to be fought very, very intensely, and we have to see it till the end. So may I first request Professor Madhu Prasad to make her presentation.
I'm really grateful. I'm really happy to be here today and to be part of this discussion. We've had such a tour de force this morning that I really wonder how much is left to talk about or to discuss. And I would like to focus only on a few ideas which have been generated by what is happening in higher education today. And in general, I would say that in fact, the focus will not be only on higher education, because I don't think we can look at education in bits and pieces. If 5-year-olds have been taught to recite prayers in the morning and then to do their ABCD one after the other in totally uncreative ways, those children are not likely to become very creative thinkers later on in life. So I think we should look at the education system as a whole. But I will, of course, focus on the fact that some features have now become typical of the entire education system. This is that education is being reduced to measurable, quantifiable factors. We now talk of outcomes. We don't talk of inputs. We talk of achievements. We don't talk of learning. So this is a whole, it may appear as though I am raising issues which are not really very important and talking about particularities when in fact the attack on the education system is so huge. But I think in this language that we have begun to use is much of the ideology which today motivates education. And no matter how much people say that education should be without politics, that education should be above ideology, today's education system is, I think, the most deeply ideological education system that I have ever experienced in my over 70 years. So, what is education? When you look at the data, the statistics which are being given out, it's always in figures. The government, state governments, central governments are very excited about the fact that 98% of children are enrolled in school now after the Right to Education Act. And that therefore, universalization of education is something which is going to happen very well, and we are already on that path. But I think universalization of education, and I'd like to make this point actually for the role that education plays in an entire society. The universalization of education is not something which is a question of achieving or setting up numerical targets. The idea of the universalization of education is deeply embedded in the idea of a society where everyone, including children, have rights to equal opportunity. And I think this is something which is very important if we have to look not only at the access to education, but also the quality of the education that we create as a result of that access. Yesterday was a day which was observed as the day when the Constituent Assembly actually signed the Constitution, the first draft, draft of the Constitution. And it is clear in that Constitution that for all the hundreds of pages that it contains, Article 14 is the most significant part of that Constitution. And that says that the state will treat all people as equal, with access to equal opportunities, with rights that guarantee equality, and I want to make it clear that I don't mean here uniformity, but equality. And that is why I think we can't, I think the question that was raised by a speaker in the last session, where she said that those who are marginalized and dispossessed really have no role to play and have had very little role to play in the education system. I think we cannot look at education apart from this question of equality, apart from the fact that where there is no equality, then education is willy-nilly going to suffer. There is not going to be the kind of education that you would be interested in as a society which became independent from colonialism in the 20th century and which is now in the 21st century and seems to be going backwards rather than going forwards in what they are achieving. What happens to education if everybody has equal rights? I think the first thing that we have to do is we have to recognize that this concept of equal rights, many of us, and some of us have also been subjected to this weakness earlier, we tend to think that this is something that comes from the West. Yes, the idea of a welfare state, the idea of equal rights, yes, it did originate in Europe. And it could be said that we have, and it has been said, that we have acquired this from the British, and this is one of the critiques of our education system today, that we took it all with its values from the British and we didn't think of what we should do in our own society. But I would like to recall the fact that the British did not give us an education system of this nature. The British, whether it was the East India Company, was concerned with providing education in order to provide a set of low-level clerks and therefore with some proficiency in the English language, and that was the kind of education that was given. And a little after that, when the British Crown took over and we had a full-fledged colonialism, at that point we found that there were certain other changes that were made to have an elite section of native collaborators with the British regime, the colonial regime. And again, whatever language you may teach your school children in, higher education was to be in English. The idea that there is this predominant language in which alone merit and value can be expressed. It's not surprising that education became one of the major demands of the freedom struggle. Because people realized that what they were getting in the name of education was in fact not education for the people of India in their endeavor to become a modern, independent nation. They did not want to become a modern version of England 300 years before. India wanted to become a modern, independent nation. A modern, independent nation that could rid itself of centuries of caste and feudal oppression, gender oppression, which went hand in glove with this. So the idea of India's modern nationhood was very closely tied with the idea of India's modern selfhood. The idea of self and nation. What you wanted was an independent, critically thinking individual who could be a citizen of an independent India. Because of this, India did have a very major role to play in talking about education. We had, I think it's the only country where the national movement, I think, had 2 major resolutions relating to independence. Plus you had Gandhi's attempt to talk about Nai Talim, on which I don't want to go into. The only tragedy is that there was little attempt even to engage with it. But I think what did happen to us after independence, and that is that we did get derailed in the project of being a modern independent nation with a modern independent people. I think we got diverted into accepting a colonial model of what was merit and what was right in education. And today what we are seeing, the kind of concepts of merit, when people talk of merit, they think of English-speaking, upper-class, prestigious people. You don't think of merit and think of the person from a scheduled caste or tribe or a remote region, non-English speaking, and that simply is not true. We think we're doing an act of kindness to them when we bring them in with reservation. No, I think that simply is not true. The variety of their experience is so much richer than the variety or the limitedness, I should say, of the experience of those who come from elite backgrounds. And it is unfortunate that very often our universities, in their ideas of admission and in their ideas of evaluation and the product that they create, we are looking for people who will form or will fall into a pattern. That pattern is what has to be broken. That pattern, unfortunately, is what is being systematically pushed today by the attempt to make education completely controlled by officialdom. But I think we should look at the fact that even we as academics, so far, how far did we actually go towards breaking the mold, which is now being imposed not only on the students, but on us as well. Okay, I'll stop here.
Thank you. Thank you, I now request Professor Rajiv Madhu to make his presentation.